Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Water Online Show, brought to you by Water Online. I am your host and publisher here at Water Online, Travis Kennedy, here as always with my colleague, Nick Browne.
What's up?
Also joining us today is a very special guest. She joined us in our last episode, and we're hoping she stays with us for as long as she can, as long as she wants to. She brings more to the show than Nick and I combined. We are so happy to have her, co-host extraordinaire, my friend, Nadia Abboud. Nadia, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Travis. Hey, Nick.
Hey, Nadia.
So today, we thought it'd be fun to dive into the Water Innovations digital magazine, which exists on Water Online right now for you to be able to download, because the January edition talks about the top 10 trends in the marketplace for 2024. So we figured it'd be fun to sort of break those 10 down and discuss maybe two each episode of the Water Online show. And what better place to start? Tell me if you think I'm
the beginning.
Let's start at the beginning, Nadia. That's
every story starts at the beginning.
Exactly. The true brains of this operation, driving the show, Nadia Abboud, letting us know exactly where we need to start. I agree wholeheartedly. I forgot to mention, though, Nadia is the president of the NA Group, and she has been in the market for over 20 years, which is remarkable because she's only 25 years of age, or she just looks like it. So we are very, very happy that she's joining us. Especially with this very first topic, because when we talk about this being sort of like a legacy industry, and a lot of technologies and solutions have been around for a while with minor tweaks to how they're applied and their usefulness in the marketplace. But what's becoming more and more apparent and more important to the marketplace is the concept of smart water.
Start with smart.
Should we start there, Nadia? What do you think?
Oh, absolutely.
All right. Start with smart, Nick. I like that.
Start with smart.
So let's start with what is the actual definition of smart water. So in the actual January issue of Water Innovations, the author of the article, the writer of the article, put out a definition of it. And I'm just going to read it here for the audience as it's noted here. And it is, the phrase smart water is used to describe a number of initiatives that utilize a data-driven approach to manage water and wastewater systems. So put simply, it's there to maximize data. So what goes into that? Well, collection of data and solutions that are able to actually do that. Then analyzing the data, which is important because you can only do anything with the data if it's analyzed. And then the third aspect of it is probably what most people want to skip right to, which is what do you do with it, right? It's collected, it's analyzed. What do you do?
I'd like to back it up just a little bit and start with the quality of the data. So everyone's talking about data. If there's not good quality, you're just getting bad results and analyzing bad results and implementing solutions based on. So first and foremost is quality data.
That's a good point, Nadia. And it brings me to like a quote from Tommy Boy. I think we've all seen the movie Tommy Boy, where Big Tom Callahan's trying to sell something at his own wedding. And he said, a guarantee is only as good as the guy who makes it. I feel the same way about data and what we do after it. Your solution and what you implement in your plant is only as good as the data that helped drive it. So great point there, Nadia. One thing that I wanted to point out right off the bat as it relates to smart water is like, all right, so smart water is broad. Very broad term, but what is the top part of smart water in terms of expenditure in the marketplace? Any guesses? Any guesses out there in the market? What do you think, Nod? What do you think is
meters?
Meters, yeah. Correct. Advanced metering infrastructure, also known as AMI, projects to be the most expensive and time-consuming aspect of the smart water rollout as we go into that. As a matter of fact, some specifics from the article is $55 million AMI project in Nevada is the single most expensive smart water project kicking off 2024. So I don't know much about it, but I do know, Nadia, you've been to Nevada quite a bit.
Yes.
Is there a reason why that project is so big in your mind? Can you think of any reason?
I would just think about the expansion and the surge of population and the importance with such a water resource area with drought, that it's, we know we're all familiar with why smart meters are being implemented. But when you look in an arid region, the resource, the declined water, it's important. It's important that they can keep tabs on where it's going, how it's going.
It all comes down to data. So
Yeah.
what Nadia is saying here relates specifically to if you only have so much water, just how your data becomes that much more important. So if you're in a water flush environment where it's not really an issue and water scarcity isn't an issue, and Nadia, you've alluded in previous shows that there's areas all over the world where it's not just not flush, it's not just rare, it's like non-existent.
Exactly.
So that's the locations and that's the areas where data becomes infinitely more important. And obviously that's where a lot of the smart water investment is going.
Yeah. I mean, listen to this. Between California, Texas, and Arizona, three notoriously dry, states in the country represent 46% of projects with, smart solutions and data-driven solutions out of the entire United States. That's nearly half in 3 states.
Without a doubt. And you have to think that more states, especially in that area in the southwest part of the United States, are going to follow suit, right? That has to be a truth. But I wonder what's stopping them right now. Is it, in your mind, is it the fact that they just don't feel like they know enough? They don't know that they have an issue? I find that hard to believe. Is it that they're a little scared to take that initial proverbial first step towards a smart water journey? Sort of coincides with digital transformation. I don't know.
It could also be the human element, right? I mean, regardless of if a utility is adequately staffed or not, depending upon the demographics of the workforce, their willingness to take on new technologies, advanced technologies, get the buy-in. That can sometimes be the biggest hurdle.
We hear a lot about in the digital transformation space, which smart water fits neatly into. And we hear this a lot at the Swan Network Forum meetings that take place every other year here in the States and every other year overseas. But the themes and the topics are very similar in terms of trying to find a solution. But what we've learned is that when it comes to smart water or digital transformation, there's a lot of cross-departmental consultation going on. So Nadia, you bring up a good point of it depends on who you have in your workforce, who's on your payroll, what is their knowledge level, and are they willing to work across departments to help land on the right answer and not just be solely focused on what it is that they're doing in that given day. I mean, one of the things that's really interesting here, as Nick talked about the percentages in terms of geography, is going back to the topic of AMI and its association with smart water, is that 3 of the top 5 projects going on right now here in the beginning of 2024 have specifically relate to AMI within the smart water umbrella, which is pretty amazing that 3 out of the top 5 all have to do with AMI. Now, that has something to do with the way the technology is coming out, and there's new technologies and new applications and new benefits to each system. And there's a lot of providers out there that provide good, solid AMI with different and varying points of important data. The other thing to keep in mind too, as it relates to this investment in smart water, is that AMI came out to the masses in the early 2000s. So we're talking 2 decades ago, 20 years ago. Now, I'm not an expert in the longevity and the lifespan of a meter or a meter reading system or anything like that, but it has to be reaching the end of their natural life, right?
I mean, even just a normal capital asset at a water, wastewater utility, we're in the 20 to 25 year range. So that sounds about right, Travis.
I mean, they have to, not just are there utilities out there looking to add AMI for the first time, or perhaps something new, there's a new bell and whistle that they like to add to their system, but ones that were early adopters are now back in the market looking for that type of solution as it relates to AMI and its fit into smart water. So I guess there's really no denying just where we are as a market. Smart water is here. Digital transformation is here. And I think that, tell me if you share this opinion, there's no utility that's going to be able to outpace it and escape from it. This is where we are. You're going to need
100%. And especially if you look at some of the funding that we're putting now into place for upgrading the infrastructure in North America. I mean, part of the reason that we had this move towards AMI was because of our aging infrastructure and how can you really understand what's happening? So it'll be really interesting to see what happens with AMI and how much more it can be optimized once we're actually able to put a better infrastructure system in place.
It will be a fun ride and very, very interesting to watch. And, Nadia, I think you brought up a good point earlier, in the fact that every municipality and utility is going to be tied directly to their workforce and their ability to adopt to smart water. Those two things are going to be intimately and infinitely connected. With that, when you talk about the rise of smart water and digital transformation, along with that is new requirements on operators, maintenance, systems integrators, things of that nature, to make sure that their understanding of those systems is just absolutely solid. It can't be understated just how critical that is. So as municipalities across the country start adopting smart water technologies and systems into their already existing infrastructure, it's important that they understand how it's been done before, or what other municipalities are doing to prep for it or research it or whatever. So if there's engineers and operators out there listening right now, we would love to hear from you. Ones that have been through this, ones that have started their smart water journey. What did they look for initially? What was the first step? What was the tipping point? What did the second step look like? How did the funding work? And we'll get to funding in a minute, but I am curious about that journey. So we, as a show, the Water Online Show, we're curious to hear your story. And I know that our listeners out there are as well. Municipalities tend to want to work together. And even though, because it really is different. And I want to pause here. The market that we're in is different than any other capitalistic market that typically exists in the United States. The city of Philadelphia is not in competition with the city of Las Vegas, and the city of Minneapolis is not in competition with the village of Horsham here in Pennsylvania. They're not in competition. So it really does help for other municipalities and localities to kind of know, what are you doing? What's working? What isn't? What did you look for? How did you find that? What are the questions you asked yourself? What review and fact checks did you do on your own system before you started down this smart water journey? What critically was the very first step that you took? I don't know. It seemed to me like there'd be a lot of information that's helpful to the market as a whole.
And it'd be interesting if there's somebody out there that would like to argue why AMI and smart meters shouldn't be the future. It'd be interesting to hear that perspective as well.
Great point. Right. I mean, hear all sides of it, because this is a topic that is not going to go away, and nor should it. This is an exciting time to be part of the market, and it could be.
We welcome the debate, right?
Absolutely. Without a doubt. So, I mean, when it comes to the debate, like typically you hear that in politics. And I know part of working for a municipality is local politics. And I'm not going to get into any political discussions at this point at all. I just wanted to touch on the funding for our systems as municipalities and townships does come from local government. Like it really does. And that local government gets it from state government, gets it from federal, and it all sort of works its way to you. So, I mean, from a funding standpoint, there's a lot going on. I mean, Nick, you and I were reading news earlier about funding as it relates to just general infrastructure, which this is correlated with.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, a week ago, the administration announced there's going to be $5.8 billion for the billion with a B in the Investing in America agenda for states, tribes, and territories. And that's to invest in drinking water and clean water infrastructure upgrades. Mm-hmm. That's part of the overall $50 billion investment in water infrastructure upgrades from the bipartisan infrastructure law, which is the largest, in American history.
Yeah.
But so this is basically, it's going to support essential water infrastructure that protects public health, treasured water bodies, and almost half of it will be available in grants or principal forgiveness loans. So, make sure the funds will reach underserved communities, I'm sorry, that are the ones that, most in needs of those upgrades and investment.
I mean,
and ultimately with the goal of protecting public health, right? Yeah. I mean,
right. I mean, it is truly amazing that where we live now, one of the issues that has brought people from both sides of the aisle together is this is important for humanity, for all of our communities. So the bipartisan deal is key there, and it affects everybody.
Yeah,
Every state-
water is
right.
universal.
Right. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it does not matter where you come from, where your municipality is on a map. There is funding available for these upgrades, and smart water has a lot to do with that because, as I mentioned before, and as we've talked about before, that's where the market's going. So, I mean, at the end of the day, smart water is the future, but it's not just looking ahead. It's about what's right in front of us, and right in front of us at this moment in time as one of the top 10 trends in 2024, as stated in Water Innovations January issue, is the rise of smart water and what you can do to get involved. And there's a lot of good information there and on Water Online. So again, that's a topic that I'm sure we're going to revisit.
Yeah.
The Water Online Show is a network of podcasts serving the water and wastewater treatment and engineering communities, delivering the latest in industry news, regulatory guidance, technology solutions, and management best practices. Produced by Water Online, the industry's premier information resource, the Water Online Show pods feature entertaining conversations with thought leaders, decision makers, and innovators, helping you stay on top of your profession and better protect the world's most precious resource. Be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. Now, the second issue that we want to discuss here today is the second topic and story brought up in the January issue of Water Innovations, Top 10 Trends of 2024, which you can find on Water Online, and that is our old friend PFAS. So unless you've been living in outer space or under a rock.
Under the water,
They
right?
probably have PFAS there.
Yeah, exactly. So you might be in a little bit of trouble, right? But PFAS has been, if not the key issue or key topic, one of the top topics, say that 10 times fast, in the marketplace for the past however long, year, 2 years, 3 years. And the reason why I go back that far is a personal story with PFAS. And I promise not to bore you, at least I hope. But here in Horsham, Pennsylvania, which is where the Water Online headquarters is and where we're coming at you live from at the studio here, just north of Philadelphia, we had a PFAS issue. And the issue came from the Air Force Base that is no longer active, but was for many, many decades at the Willow Grove Air Force Base. And at the time when it was active, they would naturally do fire drills, right? Where they would go out into the runway and put out a fire as part of a drill. But that firefighting foam had PFAS in it and would seep into the ground, right? So now we have PFAS in our groundwater. Now, at the time, nobody was looking for it. So it wasn't done intentionally. It wasn't done with negligence, but because nobody was really looking for it at all. But when we started looking for it, I say we, I didn't have anything to really
It was all you.
do with it. I was just happened to be working here in the town. But once they started looking into it, and became a substance to track and monitor and test for, there was elevated PFAS in the drinking water. So I actually tell a story about it on Water Online. We interviewed some personnel at the town of Horsham, and they were actually at the forefront of PFAS treatment and being able to take a municipality from being out of compliance. And again, it wasn't so much that they're out of compliance, it was that nobody was looking for it. But once the limits came down, they needed to get in compliance quickly. Luckily, they were ahead of the game because they were already 2 or 3 steps into the process. And the story of the Horsham Way, which is on Water Online right now, and you'll be able to read it, really got my attention and started getting the attention of the areas surrounding Philadelphia. And then we realized that it wasn't just outside of Philadelphia. It was everywhere, right? There was no place that was spared for any, large area. PFAS was an issue, and it continues to be an issue. So there's no doubt that there's growing concern about pollution from PFAS, especially with recent report that nearly half, and I say half, of the U.S. drinking water is contaminated. So I don't mean to be an alarmist or, come up with some headline hacks. Warning, half of the drinking water in the United States is in trouble. But that's what a recent report had said. And according to the story in Water Innovations, U.S. industries are a primary source, having disposed of at least 60 million pounds of PFAS waste in the past 5 years. Destroying PFAS at their sources is a critical first step to addressing this major environmental health hazard. Addressing industrial wastewater is a solid first step. Man, that is a mouthful when it comes to kicking off the topic. I came in hot, and man, this is something that just is not going to go away anytime soon, nor should it.
No, it absolutely shouldn't. I mean, one of the issues, I think, as far as PFAS, a lot of the methods for treating PFAS out there don't destroy it. So
and not only do they not destroy it, Nick, I have concerns over, are they being developed in the context of how water and wastewater technology should be, given our trends of sustainability, carbon neutrality, the ability to be digitalized, et cetera. So it's one thing if people are exploring these technologies, it's another thing, do they fit within the tapestry of where we should be going as an industry?
How far behind do you think we are, right? Like, if there's only so many solutions out there that claim they can fix the problem.
Yeah.
So whatever that means, fixing the problem has different definitions for everybody. But are we that far behind in the development of sustainable solutions that we're now playing catch up, in your opinion? Nadia, what do you think about it?
Well, it's not so much that we're playing catch up. I guess I just think about, as people are developing technologies, what are the criteria under which they do it? If it's just, we want to attack PFAS in all of its different forms, okay. But is it, we want to do it in the context of how will it be sustainable? How can it be manufactured? Is it, all of those different pieces, that comes down to, what's the incentive when someone's developing a new technology?
Yeah, without a doubt. I know that in a previous show, Nick and I had discussed at a high level, and I say high level, not highbrow. I mean, just at a very general level, without getting into too many technical specifics, about what does a municipality, what should they do? And a lot of what we talked about had to do with the Horsham Way, as covered in our interview with Horsham a few years ago. And one of the first things that came out was the very first step. If you're a municipality out there that's trying to figure out, what do I do? What's the very first step? The first step is understanding if you have a problem.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So at least figuring that out. Right. Second step is the probably most important step that gets overlooked is communication, open communication. Don't remain quiet on it. I think, Nick, your quote from a previous show was silence is not an option, which is dead on accurate, right? So communication with your constituents and with your customers and end users about, like, not just that the problem exists, but what are you doing about it?
Yeah.
Because this is going to go all the way up.
And I would think, even as you start to explore treatment solutions, looking at other avenues, do you have a legal recourse based on how your contamination came into place? There's a lot of cost that gets bared at the utility level, but they didn't cause the contamination. And I think it's important, and sometimes that can be very overwhelming for utilities to take both treatment tracks, right? They're treating and looking, how do we recoup some money? We're being forced to solve this problem and pay for it, but we didn't cause it.
That's a good point, Nadia. And a lot of that goes back to what we have talked about previously on this show, is that municipalities and townships and communities aren't in competition with each other.
Yeah.
So there's communities out there that have been through this. Horsham isn't the only one. There's hundreds, maybe thousands of communities that have already been through this process. And being able to understand what they did and how they did it is critical for any township, municipality out there that's just starting the process. I don't know how many of them are just starting, but it helps to know, A, you're not alone, B, there's resources out there, and C, there's others just like you that can actually help walk you through the process. We would actually, in future episodes, like to hear from townships and actual operators, engineers, plant managers about what they did. What was their journey like? What was their story like? So we welcome that type of feedback. And if you are a municipality, an engineer, operator, plant manager, municipality that has been through it or is in the middle of it, we would like to hear your story. So please contact us. Go to Water Online, hit the contact us button, drop us a note. We'd love to get your input on it.
You can find us on LinkedIn as well. Shoot us a
LinkedIn as well,
message
right.
on there. We're always monitoring that. One of the things that I would find interesting, speaking to a utility or municipality, is how many how many different solutions did you attempt? Your trial and error for trying to rectify the issue in your municipality. What solutions did you try? Which ones did not work? What was really your process of selecting,
Mm-hmm.
either treatment or, destruction, method, honestly.
I would also welcome to a future guest from industry. If you are in an industry that is potentially creating one of our emerging contaminants that's under review because of the potential harm for public health, how do you look at that? How do you take that into place? I mean, we're always on the other side. We're the ones getting the water, the ones who are creating it, and it would be nice to hear how they're looking at that.
No doubt about it, without a doubt. I remember when this was going down in Horsham, there was a town meeting, and the military was there, and they were all at the township building, and it gave the residents a chance to go up and actually ask questions about like what happened on the Air Force Base, how did this slip through, what were the whatever. And I had approached one member of the military that was there. They were all very nice, very pleasant, very helpful, but this one sticks out. I did ask them, I'm like, look, I'm just kind of curious though, what systems are in place now that we know that this is out there? What systems are in place now that we know that you contaminated the drinking water here in Horsham? And he stopped me very solidly and said, sir, I didn't do anything. So I was a little taken aback by it because you're right. He personally didn't do anything and nobody was being accusatory. We just want to get insight from, as Nadia points out, the other side of it, because we only see and hear about and talk about, all right, so now that it's in the water, what do we do? Right. Yeah. Which is important, but it's also important to get another perspective of, all right, so what is happening? What are you doing about it? How are you fixing it? Because you're part of the solution, right? And we want to kind of hear from that aspect of things as well, because there's a benefit to it on both sides. One of the things that really jumped out at me in this article out of Water Innovations around PFAS was one of the biggest challenges in the destruction is ensuring that all PFAS, especially the overlooked short and ultra short chain compounds, are treated.
Yeah.
So we touched on that before I went on my story about meeting with the military. That's an interesting thing to consider, because what essentially what that's saying is that it's a frequent occurrence, maybe not frequent, but it does happen more than it should, that there's overlooked compounds during the treatment process. So Nadia, you had touched on, gosh, I mean,
and is it viable for one solution to address both? And I think that's what happens with a new emerging contaminant. While we know about it, there's still a lot to be understood about it.
Without a doubt. That same paragraph goes on to say that this is especially critical because a recent environmental analysis showed that more than 95% of all PFAS in the environment are, quote, shorter chain PFAS compounds. I don't know what that means, but apparently short chain PFAS are also in high demand because it is involved in the advanced manufacturing of things such as computer chips. Right. So it's everywhere. It's not, you would think that, all right, so it's a compound. It's a toxic compound. So it's coming from paint or firefighter foam or whatever. It's coming at us from everywhere. Right. So the awareness that there's no hiding from it. Like, this is involved in so many things. So with that being said, the article goes on to say new regulations are expected to focus on shorter chain PFAS. And all of this means that destruction methods that result in shorter chain PFAS might not be relevant in the long run. So this speaks to, what is the technology going to look like a year from now, 2 years from now? Man, I mean, this is like, it's a big deal.
Does the P stand for Pandora's?
Right.
Pandora's box in this one?
It might. My gosh. But at the same time, it's exciting in a way that the industry as a whole has embraced it in terms of we're on it. Like we are going to find a way. So you have a lot of companies out there, solutions providers. I won't name any, but I will say there's a lot.
There are
that specialize in this thing, and they are up to date, and they have a ton of knowledge about whether it's short chain or ultra short chain compounds, whatever the case is. Again, I don't know what any of that stuff means on it.
Well, the other thing is whether you have technologies that are able to treat it, whether short, long, et cetera, is also how do we analyze for it? How do we measure it from either instruments or certified laboratories? And how reliable are those methods as well? So regardless of how these technologies are working, how do we police them to know that they're doing what they say they're going to be doing? And that's not just the case for PFAS, that's for any other emerging contaminant that's coming out.
Yeah, I'd be curious, one of, PFAS came around because of using the foam or chemical, what have you. Going through this process, computer chips, going through this process of how do we treat it? Let's make sure that we're not creating another PFAS as a result of the way, we're treating or the destruction that it's not going to have, that side effect.
Right.
Just knocking on the window.
There is a window washer outside of Nick's office washing his window.
Hopefully not with PFAS laden foam.
I hope not. I mean, I can hear the knocking right now. I mean, that's the VIP treatment. There's nobody outside my window yet. It's behind here, but man, oh man, we'll talk about timing. Maybe
I'm the one who knocks. Come on.
Right. PFAS laden window soap foam. See? But I want to talk a minute about the technologies as they exist right now in terms of treatment, because the article goes on to list 5 of them. I'm not going to pronounce them all. All right. The first one is HALT. Now, HALT stands for something. I'm not going to embarrass myself and go through the entire name of it, but you can find it.
Hydrothermal.
Yeah, say it louder. Say it quicker.
Treatment.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you can find how to spell that. I won't make Nick spell it without looking. If you go and access the article on Water Online, it is the second article of the Water Innovations Top 10 Trends of 2024. But HALT destroys PFAS through thermal hydrolysis and hydroxide-driven reaction mechanisms that require high temperature, high pressure, and highly alkaline hydrothermal conditions. I don't mean to brag, but I just did that all in one breath. A second area of treatment that they talked about was supercritical water oxidation. Supercritical water oxidation. That's another way. A third way, electrochemical destruction. Interesting. Okay. Fourth is plasma-based water treatment. I think we've all are aware of what that entails and what that is. A fifth one is photochemical defluorination, using a combination of UV light and a photosynthesizer to break the C-F bonds of PFAS and convert them into naturally occurring non-toxic elements. So, I mean, that's in addition to what has been out there for the past 5-10 years. Carbon filtration, for instance, is one. It's one that Horsham used.
GAC.
Yep. So there's a lot out there. There's a lot of options. And the question is for the municipalities and engineers, operators, townships out there, find what's right for you, right? No solution is going to be universal. Every single location and municipality is going to have different requirements, different levels, different needs, different finances. So find what works for you specifically.
And understand that evolution will always be happening. I mean, if we look historically back at any regulation that's come into for a contaminant in America, there's an evolution of the technology, what might have existed, and then what comes about for this very and from this very exercise of trying to implement the solutions. So, we're talking about these 5 technologies now in 2024 in the trends article. Let's see if there's another 5 by next year. I mean, we have some of the most brilliant minds working on one of the most important issues, protecting not just public health, but our environmental health.
It is a life science. Water is a life science. So we better have the top minds in the world working on it. And as a matter of fact, we do. To help pay the way, there is a lot of talk around funding for it, right? So let's stop there and talk a little bit about funding, because that's top of mind, right? So when Horsham went through this, and not to keep going back to that same example, but it just happens to be one of them closest to, the type of funding that exists now did not exist back then. They found a way and they did it. And I, for one, working here in Horsham, am happy that they did. If you look through the news, if you're on Water Online, you go through a news section related to funding. Nick, what are some of the things that they're going to find?
The administration announced over $42 million for Wyoming water infrastructure upgrades.
Good example. I'm sure PFAS probably has some part of that.
Yeah. And it's part of the larger $50 billion investment that we had, talked about a little earlier.
Mm-hmm.
They also announced over $20 million for the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater infrastructure. So that Commonwealth is over, it's about past Hawaii.
Really? I had no idea where it was.
It's out near Guam is part of those islands.
Okay.
But Guam is independent from
got it.
From these others. So, it's in the South Pacific, I believe.
So the funding is far reaching.
Yeah.
Right. And the funding's there, whether you are in Philadelphia, whether you are in Nevada, whether you are almost all the way to Guam, where we have U.S. territories there, the funding is there and it applies to all. This is a topic that is not going away. It is a problem that we hope goes away soon. And as Nadia alluded to, we have the top minds in the world working on this. I just want to summarize the article here before we get off the topic, because I feel as if the author did it quite well. He said to finalize, there is no one-size-fits-all approach to PFAS destruction that will work. Interesting. Okay, right? So we hope that means that it still exists, but it's just not one size fits all. It's not the same for one municipality versus another, which we've alluded to. He goes on to say that various technologies will be needed for different applications. The keys are to invest in promising technologies, to require comprehensive and transparent testing to ensure the technologies perform as promised, and to ensure that the solutions are sustainable. Now, you alluded to sustainability earlier on, which I think is a great point. There's a lot of moving parts to this. Probably going to be a lot of news coming out in 2024 and beyond. But it's something that we here at the Water Online show and on Water Online keep an eye on quite aggressively. Yeah. So if you need more information on PFAS remediation, treatment, or what your options may be to take a first step, please don't hesitate to visit Water Online. What else did we miss there, Nadia? What do you think? Did we miss anything on PFAS, at least for our first venture into the topic for 2024?
No, just that I think we need to stay tuned and keep an open mind and evaluate the technologies, and always under the context of, will it be sustainable?
Yep, absolutely, which we will. And we look forward to seeing you back here next time on the Water Online show. For Nadia Abboud, Nick Browne, I am Travis Kennedy, hoping you have a wonderful rest of your week, and we will see you all very soon.